Welcome to the France 24 Observers. You might have recognized this place. This is the terrace from which Muammar Gaddafi gave his speeches up until the end of the Libyan revolution. 1 year after his death, we traveled to Tripoli to meet with some of our Libyan observers. We wanted to understand what it was like to live in Libya today with their former dictator gone. Despite widely reported security problems, Libyans are working hard to rebuild. Our observers showed us a country full of hope. Before we talk about Libya's current challenges, we're going to take a quick trip into the past. In June 2011, the eastern city of Benghazi had already fallen into the hands of the rebels. But here in Tripoli, Gaddafi remained in control. And yet, despite the risks, a group of young local activists dared to defy him. They filmed themselves setting off Chinese lanterns into the sky, lanterns to which they had attached rebel flags. Now I'm here with these activists on the very same roof from which they set off the lanterns.
The goal of this operation was to send the independence flag flying high in the sky in the very heart of Tripoli. We decided to do this here on Fashloom Avenue, just next to the former home of Aisha Gaddafi, the colonel's daughter. It took us a while to find the perfect spot. This building was perfect because it was, and still is, under construction. We built Chinese lanterns and carried out several tests to make sure that they would fly. We had to calculate how many lanterns it would take to carry a flag. We used 2 cameras to film the operation, one here on the roof and one on a neighbouring rooftop. Our colleague Moad filmed from this roof. The spot we chose was risky. At the time, this neighbourhood of Tripoli was filled with Gaddafi's men, which made it difficult for us to escape following the operation. On top of this, the neighbouring building is an embassy, with security cameras rolling 24 hours a day. So the front of this building faced an avenue controlled by Gaddafi's men, and the back entrance was in plain view of the embassy cameras. As soon as we sent the flags flying into the sky, we grabbed our tools and ran off as quickly as we could. Barely 5 minutes later, the rooftop was swarming with Gaddafi's men. Once the operation was over, we edited the video in such a way as to hide our faces. Then we uploaded it to the internet. There was no internet in Tripoli at the time, but one of our members had managed to set up a satellite connection. We then sent the video to international media outlets. When we first founded our organization, we mostly held peaceful protests in Tripoli, but then we started getting more creative. For example, on the day that an international arrest warrant was issued for Gaddafi, we filmed ourselves burning a poster of him on one of Tripoli's main avenues. Libya today is far from perfect, but our country deserves the risks taken by the Free Generation movement and the sacrifices made by all Libyans.
To this day, the exact number of people who were killed during the Libyan revolution, like these men were, remains unknown, and many also disappeared. At least 4,000 people are still unaccounted for. Our next observer, Alam, works as part of a committee that searches for those disappeared, and part of her job is to inspect mass graves and try to identify those buried there. It's difficult work, but she's proud to do it.
I went to Bir al-Osta Miled Cemetery because I had heard there was a mass grave there. I wanted to verify its existence and make sure it wasn't just a rumor. I was surprised to see that so many people were buried there. Some of the bodies were still in good condition, but no one knew who they were. Others had deteriorated and were no longer recognizable. Bodies like these can be identified in several ways, through personal items they carried or through DNA analysis. Sometimes we're able to identify people thanks to photos their families provide us with. These mass graves are no secret in Libya, but the government isn't making enough efforts to identify their occupants. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be a priority right now. I've also noticed that cases involving pro-Gaddafi militiamen are treated differently than others. The ministry in charge of martyrs and missing people pays more attention to the cases of people who were rebels than those on Gaddafi's side. Identifying the bodies buried in these mass graves is very important. It allows the families of the missing to finally get closure.
Immigrants from sub-Saharan Africa, many of whom fled Libya during the revolution, are now coming back. Our next observer filmed images in Ribiana, a city in southern Libya on the border with Chad. In this very poor region, some people have found a way to make a living by smuggling in migrants. Khaled, our observer, spoke to these smugglers as well as their human cargo. In this remote part of the country, images are rare to come by.
In Ljubljana, I discovered there was a whole network dedicated to smuggling illegal migrants into the country. I met the drivers that transport migrants from Sudan to Ljubljana and then to other parts of Libya. Most of these migrants came from Eritrea, Somalia, Djibouti and Sudan. Most don't stay in Libya, it's just a stop on their road. You can see the smugglers in my video. In Ljubljana and more generally in southern Libya, there is very little work to be found. This region is abandoned. The government has no plan for developing it. There isn't even running water or electricity. And forget about roads, public transportation or infrastructure. So local residents are forced to work as smugglers. It's not that they like this work or want to be doing anything illegal. I believe that the best way to put an end to this practice is to develop southern Libya, give its inhabitants more opportunities, so they don't have to engage in illegal activities. For now, these smugglers aren't worried about getting caught. This sort of work was dangerous before the revolution, but now that there is no longer any army or police at the border, it's not dangerous at all.
Libya may still face many challenges, but it's making great progress in some areas, in particular freedom of expression. To show us what this means in practice, our observer Mohammed took us on a tour of the capital's cafes.
My friends and I decided to explore Tripoli's cafes. New ones keep popping up all over the city since the revolution. All the clients we spoke to told us that the cafes are very different now compared to during Gaddafi's era, when it was unthinkable to talk about politics in public. For example, one client told me that before the revolution, only soldiers and policemen would come to the cafe where he was sitting. They were the only ones that could talk about whatever they wanted. Most of the people we met were discussing current events, for example, the fighting in Bani Walid, the country's oil industry, or the question of federalism. Personally, as a young Libyan, cafes are very important to me. In Libya, there are no spaces dedicated to the youth, whether for culture or just entertainment. Cafes are the only place where we can meet and exchange ideas.
After having spent a week here with our Libyan observers, it's time for us to head back to Paris. Don't forget that you too can tell us what's going on where you live. Just contact us through our website or our Facebook page. See you next week in Paris, and perhaps soon in your country too.
Bye-bye.